Hi, my name is Sage, and this week I sketched out some designs of a rock monster I wanted to make because I just think rocks are cool and so are monsters, so I put those two things together, and this was my sketching page that I did. And for someone who planned everything to a T, and I don't normally do, everything went disarray anyway, so it didn't even matter. So, let's get started. And this is the stuff that I'm getting started with. And first things first, obviously I gotta rip up some tin foil before I fold it, and then I get another piece of tin foil and then scrunch it up top of that. I then do a half decent transition and bam! Clay is now up top of the little thing that I made, and the little thing that I made is his head. Ooh. I then get the thick wire and start working on his skeleton. Ooh. But don't get attached to the skeleton in any way, shape, or form. Because this is foreshadowing to what's going to happen. And you may be like, what's wrong with the skeleton, Sage? You know, like, nothing, but also it's just too big. And I was like, I can just deal with that later. Later Sage can deal with that. And then I did. And I was like, man, why did I do this to me? Like, I knew better. And now I'm adding some clay, and in the back of my mind's just like, dude, stop. But I didn't stop. I just kept on trucking along because I have the too much gene, and I was like, I can just solve these problems that are going to arise later. And then I did by taking everything apart and rolling up all that clay into a ball, but also I still kept the head because I'm like, you know what, this is a good skeletal head type of deal, you know what I'm saying? I enjoyed the frog-like head, so I kept it. And so I moved on to making a little tinfoil ball so that I can put all that clay that I just had up top of the tinfoil, because then it'll bake easier. And this was the first, well, technically second because I liked the head, but the second part of the craft that I'm making that went well. Yes, that was a sentence. And since I'm not a waster of stuff, I then take his legs and then I make them arms. Oh shit, dude, damn, I am just reinventing the wheel over here. And you may be like, is this the third thing that went right? No, it didn't. Foreshadowing again! But now I got distracted and working on his legs. I started taking tinfoil from the body that I ripped up, but then I realized this tinfoil kind of sucks, so I'm going to use it later in a different craft. But right now I'm going to take some new tinfoil, scrunch that up, and then make some legs. And you may be like, oh my gosh, is this the renewed third thing that went right? No, this went wrong too, but that's foreshadowing in a couple minutes. Also, I took his arms off because they just weren't vibing, and I'll fix it later. On screen. And here I take some more skeleton wire that I had, cut it twice, and then apply it to his feet because, as you can see, he's not very stable right now. I then add some more clay to his little feet. Ooh. I then smooth him out a little bit more, just everywhere around the edges, and then I do this transition, whoop bam, and now he's looking a little better. And since he got no arms, we have to fix that, and by we, I mean me, and so I begin my journey of adding the arms by sticking the wire through his shoulder blades and just through his entire body basically at the very top, and bam, arms. And so I begin to embark on this journey of building the clay up top of his skeleton arms. Ooh, and that's pretty much about it. I just make them look arm-like, and then I move on to working on his face. What bam! And I use the ball stylus in order to carve out his eye holes, and then I use the pointy stylus to carve out his mouth, and I kind of make it look like a jack-o'-lantern because I think jack-o'-lanterns are cool, and that's my reasoning behind that. And this is where everything goes disarray again. You may be thinking, how does it go disarray? Well, first I start to carve out some different like rock features, because I'm like, rocks obviously are cool and they have edges and they have indents, because, you know, rocks. But also, what is a rock? When you look at it, it's really any shape you want it to be, which is just too much freedom for me. I started to overthink everything, and I'm gonna take you on this journey with me. And so the chaos ensues, and how it ensues is I take a little tinfoil ball and then smash it into the clay monster to make texture, because I was like, it's just texture time in my brain. No, I needed to put the tinfoil down. And so I decided, you know what, let's move on to the next thing that I should try, which is like this pipe cleaner type of thing, but it's not, I don't know how to describe it. It's this thing that I'm using. And then I was like, you know what, let's use a different color one too. I don't know what the difference is. Don't ask me. I got these for Christmas. I don't know what they do. I just thought they look like they could texturize stuff, and you know, it's still a hot mess. So then in my big brain, I'm like, you know what will fix this? More tinfoiling. No, it did not fix it at all. And then I go back to the brush thing again because I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So then I decide to hype myself up by carving out lines that I already carved out because I like the way they look, and we need to build our confidence back up because right now everything is going wrong. And so I get the brilliant idea, you know what will actually fix this in my brain? Adding more clay. So then that's what I do. And since the ball stylus has never done me wrong before, I get the ball stylus and just start going ham, you know what I'm saying? It's starting to kind of look decent, you know what I mean? It's not looking great, but it's not looking bad. I then added like some shelves to his tummy because I'm like, what if I add like birds or something, or like moss dripping off of him? I don't do any of that. But what if I did? You know, that would have been cool, but then I ended up hating them, so don't get attached. I then use the ball stylus and run it up and down his back because that makes texture. I know that because I've done it so many times in the past. And I was like, you know what? I could just paint it to look like a rock. I am trusting in my painting future skills. I then take a small ball stylus and start poking him in random places to give him some more texture. And then I also take away the shelves because I'm like, that's enough of that. I then get the spontaneous urge to make his lower jaw jut out. Why? I don't know. I think it's beautiful and he deserves to be beautiful, so lower jaw time. I then use the big stylus and create some indents around his mouth because obviously he needs to have his beauty sculpting. And then from here on out, I basically do the same thing for 7 hours straight because it took me that long. I just keep making indents and texturizing and running the ball stylus basically everywhere until eventually his body's done, and then I can work on the leaves. And first I make a stem. I then attach the stem to his head because obviously he's gonna have some little leaves growing out of his head. I then decide to add little leaves just everywhere, no rhyme or reason, but after they're placed I then decide to add the stems because I'm just indecisive. And finally the rock monster's all done, and this is what he looks like before he goes into the oven. And this is where disaster has struck when he comes outside of the oven. First off, one of his leaves are gone, another one's gonna fall off not soon after, so beware of that, and he's leaning forward just too much. I'm almost positive it's because I didn't really support his legs the way that I should have. I should have put wire in it first and then wrapped it in tin foil rather than do what I did, but you know what? We learn from our mistakes and it's a happy accident, so now it looks like he's leaning forward to see something, so now we have to build something for him to see. And what does he see? That's correct, a friend. And so to make this friend, I'm gonna need some wire. And so I covered some wire with some tinfoil and off we go. The journey to make a serpent begins, because obviously he's gonna have a serpent friend, ooh. And like any clay journey, I'm gonna be covering the tinfoil with clay. And once I get the serpent completely covered, I then start molding him by smoothing him out and just making sure that he looks serpent-like, so kind of just like a noodle, ooh. And just like any serpent that I make, I decided to give him some horns, so he kind of looks like a little dragon, but without the wings, so kind of like a worm with a Y. I then give him some back ridges. I don't know the real name for them, but I know some dragons have them, and I just think they're neat. I then use the ball stylus and bing, bam, boom, blend them in. I then do the exact same things with the horns on the top of his head. I just blend them in using the ball stylus and make them all look matchy. I then decide I'm gonna work on his base of the skull structure, so I'm gonna give him like some forehead lumps. I don't know what they're called. I just know that snakes have them. Ooh. And while I'm adding the lumps to his head, I also work on his face structure to make him look all cute and wonderful before then putting in some eye holes. I then refine them a little bit to make them perfect, and then I give him a little smile, ooh, to make sure he's nice and happy, because obviously he's meeting his rock friend. Next, I make sure his snoot is cute. Before then, giving him some face horns, ooh, and I give him 3 because I think 3 is a good number. I then bing, bom, boom, blend them, just like I did the ridges with the little ball stylus. Before then getting distracted and adding more to the top of his skull so there's more of a ridge. I then etch out the scales to his belly using a pointy stylus and just carving them all out. Next, I take a cardboard straw that I cut diagonally to make the scales of the serpent. And here I am doing it out of frame because welcome to my channel. And I continue giving him scales until everything's complete, and then I move on to giving him some eyes so he can see his bestie. But I wasn't done yet. I was like, do you know what will really connect these two to be best friends? Leaves. So then I give him some leaves on his horns because I just think that's cute and they're dangly and that's fun. And now that they're best friends connected by their love of leaves, I can now put him into the oven so he can bake, so I can then move on to painting the rock monster. And I start by blending some black and some white together to make some gray so that I can paint him completely gray. And you would think that would not be a very long process, but it was because of all the nooks and crannies. I didn't think of that at all when I was making all of them. I was like, damn, this is just gonna look really cool. Did not realize that this would take hours of my life to paint in, and I decided to try and paint all the nooks and crannies with a mixture of black, white, and some umber brown. Once I got him as painted as I could, I then move on to painting the green leaves. Ooh, and I end up mixing this green myself. That's why there's just different hues, because I'm trying my best. I then get distracted by his face, and then his leaves on his head, and then I get distracted again, and I paint the leaves that fell off so then I can glue them back on after. But then I thought to myself, he needs even more green, so now his eyes are also gonna be green as well. And I wasn't done yet. I decided to paint all of the crevices around his smile with green too. And this is what he looks like, all greened up. And now I'm gonna glue on the leaves that fell off. And I use Gorilla Glue, not sponsored. It's just a good glue. I like it. And once I glue all the leaves and the stems back together, I then go over them with another layer of green paint to make everything look more uniform. Next, I decided to do some highlights just on different parts of his body. Do I know why? No, but I thought it would look nice, so I did it. And so now, since he's 99% done, I then decide to paint the base. And once the base is painted, I then move on to the serpent. He's now cooled and ready to be painted. And since my camera was dying because I spent so long doing this, I painted the first layer off screen. And I know it looks a little rough, but that's okay. That's what first layers are for. And I used a blend of blue and yellow to make this color. And since I picked up a gold paint, I was like, you know what would look really good with this kind of turquoisey color? Gold. However, the gold paint is kind of transparent, so I ended up doing between 4 to 6 layers. but I really like how it turned out. And this is how it turned out. Ooh, look how shimmery. I just love how deep the color is and it contrasts with the turquoise so well. So then I decide I'm gonna paint the insides of the scales blue color that I used to mix the turquoise color with, because I feel like that will just balance everything out. And I continue this process on each and every scale, and I'm not too worried about it being messy because I'm gonna go over the turquoise again with different hues, so then it has more depth. I also touch up the face with the green hues as well. I then continue this process by putting a little bit of green everywhere, just like how I did the rock monster. I just love green, man. Next, I paint his belly scales, and I paint them with a mixture of black and blue paint. And in these next few shots, you'll see me with the paintbrush without a handle because the handle just kept hitting my camera, and I was like, nah, so I just removed it. Then I do my best to fill in all the crevices with some black paint before then going over the exact same crevices with some gold, but I only do one layer because I want it to be shimmery but not like in your face, you know? Before then painting in his nostril holes with some gold, and his smile is now golden as well. And remember when I said the rock monster was 99% done? I then decide that I'm gonna add gold accents to him too. Ooh, so I paint his eyes golden, and then I also paint the leaves a little bit golden as well, and his smile too. And because the rock monster kept giving me just issues all the way around, I then hated the golden eyes on him, and then I went over it with titanium white. And this is what they look like side by side, which is fun, yay! And now I get to work on the base. And for the base, I add some moss by using white glue and then just spreading it everywhere and then dumping the moss on it. And this is the final step. I'm just hot gluing some dollar store sprigs just randomly on the moss to make it look like it's a forest scene. And I would just like to say thank you so much for watching. This is the end of the craft, and now it's time for the glamour shots.